he thought it was self-evident to him.
So he didn't say it was self-evident.
He didn't use those words, but he said it was obvious to him that it was God.
So when you said that he did say that, you were wrong. Just first of all, right?
I'm not going to play that game with you. He said it was obvious to him that God was present. Now, he didn't use the very same words that I used, but I'm not going to let you play that game with me, because if you're going to keep playing that game with me, I'm just going to stop talking. All right? So let's actually be honest with the conversation instead of actually making stuff up like saying that I'm lying.
Right. Okay. So, one thing he didn't do is he didn't say that. You interpreted him.
I didn't say I was giving a direct quotation. I was paraphrasing him. So let's be honest, instead of actually making stuff up and saying that I'm lying. So if you're going to have an actual conversation, instead of making stuff up and be intellectually honest with yourself, you're going to say that I was paraphrasing him instead of lying. So let's not be idiotic like you're obviously being, and let's actually have a discussion.
Right. Okay. So it doesn't matter because it's not an answer to the question. If you think that self-evidence is an answer to the question, then I would just have, then it just seems to me like you're going to be willing to accept any claim that anybody makes, because anybody could claim anything is self-evident.
Okay, well, Matt said it was self-evident, so you just have to take his word for it.
Wait, you said self-evident to me that you're wrong.
What is it?
Yeah. Go ahead. Right. It's self-evident to me that you're wrong. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that proves his point.
Do you see the problem? Do you see the problem?
No, because I didn't say that he's right just because he. I'm not saying that he's right just because he says it's self-evident. I'm saying that to him it's self-evident.
Well, who cares? The question is, what's the justification for the belief? Doesn't matter that somebody has some intuition that it's self-evident, whatever that.
There's a difference between de facto justification and de jure justification. So you can be intrinsically justified as opposed to being actually justified in your belief.
But I don't see what the relevance of that is.
The question was that how does he know that God appeared to him?
Yeah, and so how is saying that it seemed self-evident, whatever that means, an answer to that question? Just means that's just saying why he believed it, right? But that doesn't mean that there's a justification.
The justification is the same justification that you would have if you believe that things are necessarily true. If you believe that, let's say, you're experiencing pain, it just seems obvious that you're experiencing pain. No one can deceive you.
No. In the case of pain, right, that's constitutively self-known, right? But that's not the case of religious experience.
Why wouldn't it be?
Because it's part of the meaning, right, of the word pain, that it's something that's constitutively.
Right, yeah, you believe that you're averse to something. You couldn't believe that you're averse to something and not be averse to it.
Okay. Well, there might be an experience that is constitutively directly an experience of God.
What does that mean?
Well, we don't know because not everybody's had that experience.
That's not the case, though, because it's not that. And first of all, no apologist would like to assent to this either, because no one would like to say that the reason God exists is in virtue of my belief that God exists, right? That makes it seem like God's existence is contingent on you. But that's not true of pain, right? The reason I'm in pain is because I believe that I'm in pain. It's constituted by that belief. But if you said that God was constituted by your belief, that makes it seem like God is dependent on you for his existence. Apologists don't want to affirm that.
Well, the thing is, we can demonstrate that pain and the human brain and nervous system have a relation. We can't determine that a religious experience.
That's irrelevant.
Relation.
That's irrelevant, though. The point is that a belief that one is in pain is an incorrigible belief, right? But religious experiences are not.
Well, it's hard for me to have a mathematical belief like 1 + 1 = 2 without that itself that being evidence of 1 + 1 = 2.
I don't know what you mean by evidence. You think it's something that
it's gonna increase your credence and that is true by thinking it?
It's more surprising if it's false than if it isn't false.
What difference does that make?
What?
I mean, the question is it something that's predicted by the hypothesis? That's what evidence is.
Yeah. My belief that 1 + 1 = 2, that belief, that certainty, is more likely on the fact that 1 + 1 is actually 2.
I don't see how that follows.
Do you think you can have evidence? You can have an evidence for a certain belief?
Yeah.
Evidence is that which raises your credence, right? Rationally.
It does, yeah.
You can't raise a certain credence. But if your credence is already certain, you can't raise it. What could possibly raise it?
It raises it to 100%.
It's already at 100%. That's
yeah, once you reflect on it, you realize it's 100%. Yeah.
You're saying at one point you're uncertain, or perhaps quite sure that 1 + 1 = 2, and then
let's say
on some observation you approach.
So you think about it a little while longer, and then all of a sudden,
so you can do a complex mathematical problem using these elementary facts about mathematics, and learn that a more complex mathematical problem has a certain result that's certainly true, and that's where you get your you realize the credence for that response is 100%.
Yeah, but what are you saying though? No one's saying that you can't do deduction. I don't know why you're pointing that out. Yeah,
now, this is like now he's just changed. First he was saying it's self-evident, right? And now he's saying it's not self-evident, right?
No, I think you're assuming that
evidence
evidence can't involve certainty. So I think that's false.
Just explain why that's the case.
Because I'm using a broader understanding of evidence, and this is actually something that philosophers have agreed on.
Wait,
there are philosophers who use that understanding of evidence. So
what understanding are you talking?
That includes a priori knowledge that's about necessary truths.
What
things might
is
increase credence.
Yeah, what's evidence supposed to mean on that account? I don't get it.
It's more likely on the hypothesis than otherwise.
We just talked about how you can't raise likelihood above 1.
Probability. Yeah. So something can have the probability of 1. So I don't see what the problem is.
Because you can't raise the probability above 1. That's what the problem.
No one's saying anything about raising the probability above 1. So I don't see what you're talking about.
But if it's at 1, how are you gaining evidence for it? It's not like you're raising.
You can test beliefs about necessary truths, right? So somebody says that a certain mathematical complex problem has a certain result. You're not sure. You're not certain about it because you haven't done the necessary reflection. You reflect on it. Oh, I guess I'm more certain about it because I used to take it on authority, and now I just did it on my own, and now I believe it fully. I used to just believe it on secondhand knowledge, but now I believe it because I know it.
You're using more certain there kind of loosely then, right? What you mean is at one point you weren't certain, and then perhaps you were more.
I had a reasonable doubt. Now I have certain evidence. There you go.
But he's also talking about deduction, right? Which is opposite of what he was talking about earlier. He's talking about deducing and concluding something is true.
Yeah, so you're retracting what you were saying before about self-evidence, right? That was just like a mistake.
What is supposed to be self-evident? I missed.
No, I still believe that self-evident truths require evidence. So I don't see what you're saying.
Evidence?
But only themselves, right? Themselves would be the evidence, right? That's what self-evident means, I think. Or something like that.
Yeah, self-evident. Yeah, exactly.
Like the proposition itself is evidence of its own truth somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah, what is that?
However that's supposed to work.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense on the analysis of evidence that he gave, that it raises the probability. What does it mean for it to raise the probability of itself?
Let me phrase it differently then. It's more surprising if it were false than if it were true. That's a much better.
How is that predictive expectation generated? I don't.
Right.
It just is.
But I mean, this is all just to point out, why. I don't even understand how you could give this. It's just clearly not an answer to the question. Like if anybody else presented you in any other context with anything and they said something like, oh, well, is there milk in the fridge? And I said, no. And they said, well, how do you know there's no milk in the fridge? And they said, well, because there's no milk in the fridge. How have they answered your question?
It's ridiculous.
My experience is less likely someone that same strange situation.
Can I ask something, Jack? I'm not saying this is a good argument, right? I'm asking, if God existed, right, then he would presumably have a way to communicate in a way in which the intended target would know that was God communicating.
No. It's a causal, justificatory relation. We've been over that before.
I understand. This is not my argument. I'm just saying that's what Matt seems to say.
Yeah, well, Matt's an idiot.
Right.
No, that's not.
He's just but he's just assuming that God would have the capacity to produce some justification. But the argument is supposed to show that that's not possible, right? So how would so the fact just asserting that God could do it is just begging the question.
Well, he's saying. Well, to be fair, he's not simply saying God could do it. He's saying God did it to me.
It doesn't make any sense.
What that entails that God could do it. If God did it to you, that entails that God can do it.
Yeah. So he's saying, I am a living, breathing example that it can be done.
How is that not question begging?
But listen, the whole point is
you're assuming that it's been done. That's just question begging, yeah.
You have to criticize the argument on the argument.
I'm not saying this is I'm simply clarifying what Matt is saying, because you guys seem to kind of misrepresent. I want him to.
What Matt is saying, Matt's an idiot.
But what he's saying is just plainly question begging and not engaging the argument at all.
Yeah, that's what we said at the outset, and somebody here spoke up and said, I don't see what's wrong with what Matt said, right? Which is just ridiculous.